Egypt is one of the most densely populated countries in Africa. This country is famous for its ancient Egyptian culture. These include ancient monuments such as the Pyramids of Giza, the Karnak Temple, and the Valley of the Kings. The old name of Egypt was Kemet, meaning black earth. The majority of the black soil came through the Nile floods. Inscriptions say that Stone Age men lived on the banks of the Nile. Welcome everybody to a new episode of Billion Stories. Today's video features fun facts that everyone wants to know about Egypt. So let's start. Number 1. The calendar marking 365 days a year was invented by the Egyptians. The main reason for its invention was due to the fact that the banks of the river Nile overflowed and flooded every year. The Egyptians invented the calendar to understand as to when that happens each year and in order to take precautions to explore protection from it. Number 2. The world's oldest apparel was found in Egypt. Perhaps when a 5,000-year-old garment was recovered from Egypt, probably it's assumed to be the world's first fashion house. Number 3. Generally, it's believed that the pyramids were built by slaves, but it's not so. They were paid laborers. Most of them built the pyramid in honor of the pharaoh. Moreover, many people who died during the construction of the pyramid were buried in the graveyards near the pyramid. Number 4. The largest city in Africa and the Middle East is Cairo, located in Egypt. Approximately 22 million people live there. Number 5. More than 5 million people use Facebook in Egypt. Facebook played a very important role in the Egyptian Revolution of 2011. Number 6. Football is the most popular sport in Egypt. Mohamed Salah is Egypt's most famous footballer of all time. Number 7. In ancient Egypt, each city had its own favorite gods. In the oldest cultures in the world, they could not define God as a separate, special person or entity. It's clear that Egyptians were the followers of the really great ideology that they saw or were able to see God in humans, animals, and nature. The ancient Egyptians believed that every city had its own favorite deities. Number 8. The largest dam in the world is in Egypt. The Aswan Dam was built to conserve water from the world's largest river, the Nile. The dam, built 6 kilometers away from the first Aswan Dam, built in 1902, is now known as the New Aswan Dam. Number 9. The official language of Egypt is Arabic, but many people know English and French. Number 10. Egypt is the largest nation having the Arabic population in the world. Almost 90% of Egyptians are Muslim. In the 7th century, the Arabs introduced the Arabic language and Islam religion into Egypt. By the 21st century, 90% of Egypt became followers of Islam. Number 11. The shape of the ancient Egyptian pyramids, one of the world's great wonders, is believed to be inspired by the rays of the sun. Number 12. It's believed that the history of Egypt began in 3200 BC when King Menes united the smaller and larger kingdoms. Number 13. The ancient Egyptians believed that mummification would ensure that the deceased passed safely into the afterlife. The mummification process consisted of 2 stages. At the time of the burial, the deceased's organs were kept in canopic jars. Each vessel represents a god. Number 14. Women in ancient Egypt had more rights and privileges than women in other countries. For example, they had the right to own property, do business, and even initiate a divorce. Number 15. The bread was the main food and beer was the main drink of ancient Egypt. Number 16. 3 different calendars existed in ancient Egypt. They were the daily used farming calendar, astronomical calendar, and a lunar calendar. Number 17. The ancient Egyptians were the first people who divided a year of 365 days into 12 months. Number 18. The 365-day agricultural calendar consists of 3 seasons of 4 months. The astronomical calendar is based on the observations of the star Sirius, which appeared again and again every year at the beginning of the flood. The lunar calendar is a calendar that tells when to perform rituals for the moon god Khonsu. 19. The ancient Egyptians worshipped over 1,000 different deities. The most important god of all was the sun god, known as Ra. Number 20. Egypt was known by many names in the long history of Egypt. In the Old Kingdom, Egypt was called Kemet, or Black Land, referring to the dark, rich soil of the Nile Valley. Egypt was also called the Red Land to refer to the vast red deserts of Egypt. Number 21. In Egypt, both men and women had eye makeup known as kohl. It's made by mixing raw materials with oil. They believed that it had the magical power from vision destruction and curing eye infections. Number 22. The average life expectancy for Egyptians is approximately 72.66 years, which ranks 124th in the world. Life expectancy for men is approximately 70.07 years and 75.38 years for women. Number 23. Based on area, Egypt is the 30th largest country in the world. Egypt is 3 times larger than New Mexico. Number 24. In ancient Egypt, men and women often balded their heads and wore wigs to stay calm and to avoid the scourge of lice. In fact, because wigs represented social status, wigs became one of the most important fashion accessories in ancient Egypt. Number 25. The Nile River in Egypt is the longest river in the world, flowing 4,135 miles, 6,670 kilometers. Number 26. The ancient Egyptians believed that the overflow of the river Nile every year is the tears of the goddess Isis. The Egyptians celebrated the flood on the night of the teardrop. Number 27. The ancient Egyptians had to predict when the Nile would flood. This led to the development of the world's first calendar. Number 28. The oldest recorded execution was in Egypt in 1500 BC. A teenager, Amherst Papyri, was ordered to be poisoned or hacked to death for practicing magic. Hey, thank you for watching Billion Stories, and be sure to subscribe because more incredible contents are on the way.